But my clothes, my jewellery...
Yeah, well, perhaps some exceptions might be made for personal effects. If you care to drop a list of such items, I dare say we could agree to exclude those. But nothing must go out of this house unless it is specifically listed and agreed.
It still seems very extraordinary.
Oh, my client is a very liberal man, but I must admit that he has his little fads. Likes to do things his own way. With him it's everything or nothing.
Oh, is it?
Now, madam, if you'd care to sign where I have indicated...
No. I've changed my mind. I'm sorry to have wasted your time, but I've decided not to sell the house after all. I'm sorry.
And what did the gentleman have to say to that?
He became very upset. He argued, he pleaded, but my mind was made up. So at last he left the house in a very bad temper.
Excuse me. Take no notice of me. Just carry on talking.
Where are you going?
Do continue with what you were telling us, Mrs. Mayberry. I'm sure we shall soon get to the bottom of this mystery.
Oh, goodness gracious.
As I thought, an eavesdropper at the door. Won't you come in?
Leave me alone. Let go my arm.
Susan, what is the meaning of this?
Well, madam, I was just coming in to ask if the visitors were staying for lunch when he jumped out at me. Give me the fright of my life, he did.
Nonsense, my dear. You've been outside that door for several minutes. Heavy breathers shouldn't listen at keyholes. A little asthmatic, aren't you?
Don't you go calling me names. You've got no right to go pulling
Never
me
mind,
about.
Susan. Come in and join us. Now tell me, Mrs. Mayberly, did you mention to anyone else that you were going to write and consult me?
No, Mr. Holmes, I didn't.
And who posted your letter?
Well, I suppose it... Susan did.
Exactly. Now, Susan, to whom did you write or send a message to say that your mistress was in touch with Sherlock Holmes?
It's all lies. I never sent no
Oh,
message.
Susan, it's a wicked thing to tell fibs. Come on now. Who did you tell?
I didn't tell a soul. I swear. I never spoke to nobody.
That can't be quite true, Susan. Didn't I see you gossiping with some man at the garden gate the other morning?
Well, what if I did? There's no harm in passing the time of day, is there?
Suppose I were to suggest that the man you spoke to was Barney Stockdale.
Well, if you know so much, what do you want to ask me for?
I didn't know for certain, but I know now. Listen to me, Susan. It'll be worth £10 to you if you'll tell me who's at the back of Barney this time.
Someone what could lay down £1,000 for every 10 you got in the bank.
So, a very rich gentleman, eh?
That's where you're wrong, see. You think you're so clever, but you're wrong there.
Come along. Now we've got so far, you might as well tell me the man's name and earn a tenner.
I'll see you in hell first.
How dare you? Unless you apologise immediately.
Apologise to him? Not likely, not to you neither. I've had enough of this dead and alive hole. I'm clearing out right now. I'll send for my box tomorrow.
Goodbye, Susan. If you have any more respiratory problems, Paragoric's the stuff.
Plainly, the gang means business. They didn't waste any time. Your letter to me was postmarked late yesterday evening, yet Susan passes the word to Barney. Barney has time to go to his employer and get his instructions. Black Steve is called in, and by 11 o'clock this morning, I'm warned off. Quick work, eh?
Yes, but what do these ruffians want?
Yes, that's the question. Why are they so desperate to get hold of your furniture, Mrs. Mayberly? You don't happen to have a Raphael or a First Folio Shakespeare knocking about?
No, I don't think I have anything rarer than a Crown Derby tea service.
Well, that would hardly justify this skullduggery. If they coveted your tea service, they could offer a price for it without buying the whole house. No. As I read it, there's something you have which you don't know you have.
And something you wouldn't give up if you did know.
Yes, well done, Watson. You're absolutely right.
But what on earth could it be?
Well, let's see if we can narrow this down a little. Now, you've been in this house for 1 year?
Nearly 2.
Nearly 2, all the better. During nearly 2 years, no one wanted anything from you. Suddenly, you receive urgent demands. Now, what may we gather from that?
It must mean that the object, whatever it is, has only just come into the house.
Right again, my dear fellow. Tell me, Mrs. Mayberly, has any new furniture arrived recently?
No, I haven't bought anything for the house this year.
That is very remarkable. Well, I think we'd better let matters develop a little further. Yes. Is that lawyer of yours a capable chap?
Mr. Sutro? Oh, yes, very capable indeed.
Now, I understand you have another maid in the house, apart from the fair Susan who just slammed the front door on her way out.
Yes, there's Molly. This is her day off, but she'll be coming back later.
So tonight you and Molly will be alone?
Yes.
I'd like you to invite Mr. Sutro to spend the next few nights under this roof. You may be in need of protection.
Protection? From whom?
I wish I knew. If I can't discover the man's identity, I must get at it from a different direction. Did the house agent leave his address?
He gave me his card. I have it somewhere, but it just said Haynes Johnson, auctioneer and valuer.
That's odd in itself. Men of business don't usually conceal their address.
Very true. Well, there's nothing more we can do at present. You'll let me know if there are any further developments.
Yes, of course. Oh, let me see you out.
Try not to worry, Mrs. Mabley. Now Mr. Holmes has taken up the case, you can rely upon him to see you through.
I'm sure I can.
Talking of cases, where does that luggage come from? Piled up on the half landing. I noticed some foreign labels, Milano, Lucerne.
Oh, they're poor Douglas's things. Sent back from Italy.
But you haven't yet unpacked them. How long have they been there?
Well, they arrived last week. I'm afraid I've been putting it off, rather.
Yes, very understandable. Last week, you say?
Yes, that's right. The luggage was delivered on Friday morning, and Good heavens. You don't think...
It had crossed my mind.
You mean there's something valuable in one of those cases?
It's a possibility, isn't it?
I suppose so, and yet it hardly seems likely. Douglas only had his salary and a small annuity. What could he possibly have?
Delay no longer. Have these things taken upstairs, the trunk, the suitcases. Examine them as soon as possible to see what they contain. I shall return tomorrow and hear what you have to report. Until then, goodbye, Mrs. Mabley.
Goodbye, Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, and thank you.
Doesn't this strike you as incongruous, Holmes?
What's that?
These sinister goings-on, set amid pleasant rural surroundings. We might be 100 miles from the great metropolis. And it was such a peaceful spot. Yet all the while...
Not as peaceful as all that. Our friend's as good as his word. He promised he'd be waiting for us.
Our friend? Oh, I see what you mean.
It's a small world, Mr. Holmes.
And your world will be even smaller once the police catch up with you.
Please, Mr. Holmes, we don't want no talk about police, or no more trouble about that business of young Perkins, neither. I done think over what you said this morning, Mr. Holmes, and I decided if I can help you, I sure will.
You can help me find the man behind Barney Stockdale. Just tell me his name. That's all I want.
If I knew, I'd tell you, honest to God, but I don't. Only thing I do know, it ain't a him, it's a her.
A woman? So that's what amused Susan.
And not just any woman, neither. A real classy dame she is.
Is that all you can tell us?
That's all, so help me. Barney gives us our orders, but he don't tell us nothing else.
And these are my orders. Bear in mind that the lady living at Three Gables is under my protection, and so is every single thing inside the house. Huh? You remember that?
I sure will, Mr. Holmes. But I can't stay here talking no more. If someone wants to see me with you, it'd be real bad for both of us. So long, Mr. Holmes, sir. And you too, mister.
Yes, he's scared for his own skin now, Watson. He'd double-cross Barney if he could. But the key to the mystery lies with the late Douglas Mabley. I'm sure of that.
But it doesn't make sense. Mabley had been living in Italy for some time. How could there be any connection between him and this gang of local ruffians?
That's what we have to find out. If only I knew someone who could tell me more about that young man. Douglas Mabley. Mrs. Mabley, the Three Gables... Gable. Great heavens, why didn't I think of him before? Clarence Gable.
Who?
A friend of my youth. Well, you're not the only one who keeps up with old schoolmates, Watson. A strange individual. Spends his day sitting in the bow window of his club, observing the passing show. Oh, there's a human reference book on matters of high society. I must go to Brook Street immediately.
Very well, I'll come with you.
Thanks, my dear chap, but not this time. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Shall we say 10 o'clock? Gable is a little eccentric and detests meeting strangers.
Oh, thank you, waiter. Perhaps just one more cream bun.
Good afternoon, Gable.
Good Lord. It's you. I thought it was the waiter with the tea wagon.
Shh.
Look, you must excuse me. I'm just making a few notes. Let me see, where was I?
I'm sorry to break your train of thought, but I was hoping you might be able to assist me.
One of your clientele getting himself into hot water again?
I wouldn't put it that way myself, but...
Someone with a position in society? A title, perhaps?
No, an elderly woman living in Harrow Weald.
Harrow Weald? Look, I'm sorry, Holmes, I can't help you. I'm engaged on a matter of extreme interest.
So am I, and it's also a matter of extreme urgency.
Hush, if you please. Hush! Oh, very well, very well. What is it?
I want you to tell me everything you know about the late Douglas Maberly.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, I expected to find you in your dressing gown, still finishing breakfast.
I made an early start. We have to go out.
Oh, yes? And how did you get on yesterday afternoon with, what's his name?
Gable. He was very helpful and told me exactly what I needed to know.
Oh, that's good. What did he say about...
Well, as good as it might have been. This telegram arrived a few minutes ago.
Please come at once. House burgled during night. Police in possession. Mary Maberly.
I blame myself. I should have asked you to spend the night on guard at Three Gables. Her solicitor clearly proved to be a broken reed. Well, there's nothing for it but another trip to Harrow Weald. And I fear we shall be too late.
I'm afraid you've had a wasted journey, Mr. Holmes. There's no chance for you in this case. It's a common or garden burglary, well within the humble capacities of the poor old police force. No experts need apply.
I'm sure the case is in very good hands, Inspector, but are you sure this is just a simple burglary?
Oh, no doubt about it. We know pretty well who the men are and where to find them.
Yes, Barney Stockdale's gang, of course.
Hey, but how did you know that?
Well, they've been seen lurking about in the vicinity, I fancy.
That's true enough. Luckily, they don't seem to have got away with anything much.
Perhaps you'll tell us everything you know.
Well, it happened last night. Signs of break-in and entering. The lady of the house was chloroformed, and then...
Good heavens. How is she? Where is she?
I'm here, Dr. Watson. A little faint and dizzy, but as you see, I'm otherwise unharmed. Good morning, Mr. Holmes. I am very glad to see you.
We came as soon as we received your message.
Please, madam, sit down.
Oh,
You've
thank
been through
you.
a very nasty ordeal, and you need rest.
Well, it was entirely my own fault. Yesterday you gave me good advice, Mr. Holmes, and I did not take it. I didn't wish to trouble my solicitor, so last night this house was unprotected.
You look very far from well. You really should be in bed.
Please don't worry about me. I want to help you as much as I can.
You can leave all that to me, madam. I've got all the particulars right here in my notebook.
Nevertheless, if Mrs. Maberly is not too exhausted, I would be very interested to hear what she has to tell us.
Well, there isn't much to tell. No doubt the wretched Susan helped them to break in. She knows the weak points in the house. I was only awake for a moment before they thrust a chloroformed rag over my mouth. No idea how long I remained unconscious, but when I came to, I saw two men going through my son's luggage. I'd left it at the foot of my bed, intending to begin unpacking this morning. I tried to stop them. I think one of them struck me because I remember no more.
Seems that the parlour-maid heard the commotion because she began screaming out of the window. We were round here pretty sharp after that, but the blackguards got clean away.
What had they taken?
Oh, that's the strangest part of it. As far as I can tell, there's nothing missing, certainly nothing of any importance. They were only interested in my son's luggage. I'm sure he had no valuables.
And they left no clue whatever?
No, nothing. Except a single sheet of paper crumpled up on the floor.
In Douglas Maberly's handwriting, which means it's not much use to us. Now, if it had been in the criminal's handwriting, that might have been a very different matter.
Yes. If the burglars had left you a signed note, that would have been extremely obliging. All the same, I should be curious to see the paper.
I never let anything slip past me, however trifling, Mr. Holmes. Here it is.
And what do you make of this manuscript, Inspector?
Looks like the end of some sort of story, so far as I can see.
You notice the number at the top of the page, 245. Where are the other 244 pages, I wonder?
Well, I suppose the burglars must have got those. I dare say they were in such a hurry they picked up the first thing that came to hand. Much good may it do 'em.
May I see that? Thank you. She smiled at him, and at that moment, love died and hate was born.